All right. So what's on your mind, Jeff?
I wanted to talk about dealing with like stress. The holidays can be a pretty stressful time of year, and so for me, I have a hard time like dealing with stress, and I end up like playing video games or doing stuff I shouldn't, get into bad habits to relieve the stress. So I'm trying to come up with strategies, like just things to do that I should, in order to relieve stress without it being like unproductive and being able to focus on what really matters.
Well, the better tool would be preventing the stress
That's true.
as opposed to relieving it. So when you say stress and anxiety, we can probably use those in the same thought here.
hmm
What does your awareness tell you is driving this stress?
I think I have a tendency to overthink things in terms of like worrying too much about making sure everything like works out well. I definitely want the best for my son, but I think I'm too focused on having it be perfect. Like trying to
Ah,
create a situation where like it's the perfect situation for my son or my family or myself, and I become anxious, and that takes away from really enjoying my time. Sometimes my time with them, and I should be more focused on them than the actual than necessarily how things are going.
so would you be comfortable saying that you can be very controlling in these situations?
Yes, yeah.
Because when you say you overthink it, it's not so much a matter of overthinking it, it's a matter of trying to control something that needs to be more fluid.
hmm
Because you're doing a holiday gathering, you're not trying to execute mealtime on a military base, where everything has to be very methodical.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you weren't controlling, do you have a fear that certain things cannot be trusted to themselves? Certain things would totally go off the rails if you weren't controlling it?
Um, no, I don't think so. I think I just have a tendency to sort of over prepare, and I think that's just how I go about doing things. Is I try to make things as good as possible, and I'm not really sure when to stop. Like when to be like, okay, you've done enough, you can stop now and just do other stuff.
Okay, so it's kind of an all or nothing thing here too.
Yep.
You don't have you kind of see the entire experience of it as the thing. Or like you said, you don't know where to stop.
hmm
So are you hosting the holiday gathering?
Well, my son's birthday is December 27th,
Okay.
so we host a birthday party for him. We used to host Thanksgiving, but then that got to be too much because we do a lot of shopping on Black Friday. So I do over prepare for like stuff like Black Friday in terms of like making sure that goes smoothly. Um, so no, we tend not to host or get-togethers at our place just because neither of us are really into hosting.
Okay. So the birthday party is one thing that's going to happen, or do you need to prepare for stress being a guest at somebody's gathering?
Well, yeah, when I visit my dad for the holidays, that can be kind of stressful because I don't see him very often, and sometimes just interacting with my stepmother or my half brother, it's just sort of anxious because I don't know how they're gonna sort of react to what I say sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm sometimes I worry just about like when I talk whether I'm going to be say the wrong thing or just put them off by just being too honest.
Okay. So it sounds like there's been a history here. Hey, Tammy.
Sorry, my.
No, no worries. Tammy's been trying to join the calls forever,
Mhm.
and it finally worked with her schedule. So it's really awesome.
That's
Jeff
great.
was just sharing some anxieties he has around the holiday gatherings.
Uh,
So is that relevant to you too?
it used to be for my daughter, but we don't, not anymore.
That's good. So maybe you'll be able to add a little bit here to the conversation. So one thing that sounds like you've already discovered, Jeff, is there are certain boundaries that your relatives have as far as maybe things they don't want commentary on.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you say sometimes you can be too honest, well, if you're able to remember what those touchy subjects are, and for a holiday setting, it's just not necessary to bring those up, that you can cross those off the list of conversation topics.
Yep.
And I'm trying to remember what was the first thing you said. It was something or being too honest.
Well, I sort of said like saying the wrong thing, because I have a habit of just saying what's on the top of my mind.
So it's an impulse thing.
Yeah. So I don't really think through sometimes what I say, and it comes across the wrong way. It rubs them the wrong way.
Okay. Do you think that they get the sense that sometimes you speak before thinking?
Yes. What's the right way? So yeah, it sort of varies depending on how I react to what they say. So sometimes I'm reactive, and sometimes I'm considerate and more of a thinker.
Okay. How much discipline do you have around that reactivity? So if they were to say something to you, do you automatically just, boom, you have to be right on top of it? Or can you say, something to think about? Then process a little bit, then respond.
I think it depends on my moods. If I'm in a good mood, I think I'm fine. Sometimes when someone rubs me the wrong way and I become a little more defensive or irritated, then I'm less careful of what I say.
Okay. So you're still kind of in the neighborhood of reactivity, that my mood determines my reaction, how I feel about things. So there's this external entity, the way you see it, that's driving it, when the bottom line is it's all you.
Yeah.
If you get yourself in an upset mood, you got yourself there.
That's true.
There's this one saying that flies around Facebook that's just pure garbage. It says something about the fact that, I can't remember exactly what it is, but the end point of it is your attitude towards me determines my behavior towards you. That's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Because what it's basically saying is other people control the way you behave, or other people control your feelings. That is just so ridiculous. I'm surprised that it gets shared so much, but it does show what people believe. People continue to feel that if their buttons are pushed, it's somebody else's responsibility. So when you go into any holiday situation, it is absolutely essential, as much as possible, for you to decide ahead of time, what is your outcome? When you leave there, what you want your takeaway to be from the evening. If you're concerned about dodging these moments where you may be reactive to something, you're not seeing it as an experience you want to create. You're seeing it as an experiences you're trying to avoid. Mm-hmm. And you unfortunately end up creating the very thing that you are trying to avoid, because what's top of mind? I hope my brother doesn't say this. I hope I don't get in a mood. I hope nobody pushes my buttons. And your radar is up for those moments, as opposed to walking through the door saying, hey, how can I help? Hey, do you need anything? Do I need to run to the store for anything? Mm-hmm. The more other focused you are, the less fretting you're going to do, the less you're going to have time to worry, because that's simply not where your focus is. One of the things that I learned in the past to handle my own anxiety is, on my way to any event, I try to ask ahead of time what the guest list is going to be. How many, who are the people, so I can think about who I'm going to greet, what questions am I going to ask them. And the questions I'm not going to ask is, hey, would you like to hear about my life? Because there are some people that lead with that, and it just totally sucks the wind out of the conversation. Mm-hmm. They start, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. What's new? Or, hey, what are you looking forward to for whatever the next holiday is? Or, hey, you're sitting down there, can I get you anything while I'm standing? When you think about being of service, it can only improve the mood.
That makes sense.
People are being attended to. People feel good. And this is something that you can instill in kids as well. prepare them to be helpful. Because being of help is very concrete. Hey, can you take this glass to so-and-so? Hey, can you help me set the forks on the table? This is where the fork goes. It's the same for every setting. And that also helps the child manage their anxiety because same principle for adults. The focus is elsewhere. It's not on, are people talking about me? Are they looking at me? Is my shirt on straight? So one of the things that was a disservice to me when I was a kid, not only the fact that these diagnoses didn't exist, was the fact that I had nothing to do. I was just standing around being bored while the adults chatted with each other. So I had this whole perseveration on, I don't know what to do. Should I be doing something? Who can I talk to? Feeling like I'm invisible, trying to get somebody's attention, being accused of interrupting, and it just kind of snowballed from there. I had a meltdown, got sent to my room for ruining everybody's day. It was the same thing every single holiday. So does that kind of help point you in the direction you were hoping to go, Jeff?
Definitely. I definitely think it's a mindset thing where you shouldn't focus on your anxieties or like saying the wrong thing, and just being helpful is the best way to I think just make the holidays better for everyone.
And let's tweak the language a little bit more. As opposed to you shouldn't focus on your anxiety, it makes sense to focus on what you want to create.
Okay.
Is you want to create the feeling of attentiveness, of belonging, of happiness, of togetherness, of connection. And when you're helpful, you do all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So Tammy, your first time here.
Yes.
And it's close to the holidays, so we can talk about holiday-related stuff, not a have to. This is a time for you to explore what's top of mind for you this week. What are the challenges that you most want to address so that we can give you some strategies to apply?
Well, this week, it's funny what you're talking about because my daughter has a super executive function issue and had a special binder that was made for her by her educator that she lost on Monday. And it was like a camel, the straw that broke my back, I guess, that she lost this binder that was helping me so much. And we got this binder in place, we got a sticky note system in place. Everything was working so well, and then she lost the binder. And so we've had 2 days of arguments about it and reactive. Her and I and me being mad at her and her being mad at me for this lost stupid binder, which I found today.
Hallelujah. That was going to be my next question.
I replaced it yesterday. I bought all the things to redo it, sent her to school with the new binder, and found the other one today. So all that yelling and screaming and carrying on that we had on Monday and Tuesday was for naught because it was here the whole time.
So it was somewhere in the house.
Yeah, it fell out of her bag and it was behind a piece of furniture that I moved to vacuum today.
Well, to hell with furniture. Now you got to get rid of all that stuff. It causes too much problem.
Yeah. So this week was the fly in our ointment, the lost book.
So what is it about this binder that has proved to be the most useful? Are we talking about a color coding system, different colored folders and words? What is it about the binder?
It's a clear binder. So, and it has a flap on the front cover that opens. And so she puts her Post-it notes of what she has to absolutely do today inside the flap, and then she closes it so she can see the Post-it notes on the front.
Okay.
And inside she put pockets. She put, they're not pockets. They have pockets on them, but they're separators and they're all different colors. And there's one for each subject so she can put her stuff in there because things weren't being handed in. So she would do her work and get to school with her work done or ask me for the signature but never hand it in. So she was getting big fat eggs on the handing things back. So this way everything is, and then she wasn't, if she did hand it back, she put it back in and she never filed it. So we had like a binder this thick at one point.
So she was a collector as well.
Yeah, so when we changed educators, the new educator made her this brand new binder and it was really working. And the sticky notes were working too, so that was good because things that were absolutely important to do that night, to bring home the books or whatever, she had a whiteboard on her desk, but it wasn't helping. But the Post-it notes helped. So the new
What grade is she in?
7.
Okay.
High school here.
Do you live in a district where at some point the kids are going to be giving Chromebooks or something like that?
I'm not sure how it works where she's in private school.
Ah, that's why. Okay.
And the public system here, they all work on an iPad.
Wow. That's even slicker than a Chromebook.
I don't know. She has no self-control with an iPad. So
are we talking about getting caught up in YouTube videos and games and all that stuff?
yeah.
Those things can be disabled.
Yes. Well, I was at the point where that was my next thing, was to ask her an iPad. But my concern is she'd lose it.
Because aside from the device, and that's why I asked kind of what was the components of the binder, because as much as possible, kids, especially the real forgetful ones, disorganized ones, if they can be moved to a digital platform, it eliminates the possibility of forgetting anything. Because there was one young man that I worked with a bunch of years ago, very much like your daughter, always forgetting to hand things in, always forgetting to bring things home. So we set up a system where he used Google Drive, and there was a folder in there, a couple folders between him and his teachers. So the teachers would upload worksheets in the folders and started doing this for all the kids because it turned out a lot of kids preferred this. So it was easier for the teacher to remember. So he would just have to go home, open up his Google Drive, pull out the worksheet. If it's one of those things that you needed to handwrite, which you really don't need to do handwriting anymore, you can type right onto the sheet, do it right in Google Drive, and it automatically saves. It's another beautiful thing about it. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to remember to do that. So if you accidentally exit out, you don't lose all your work.
Oh, nice.
And when it's completed, the teacher looks at it the next day. Oh, it's already handed in. It's in the Google Drive. Nothing to worry about.
Oh, interesting.
So you can do that and take the binder completely out of the equation if she has some kind of digital device.
Right. Yeah, I'm waiting to see. She has dyspraxia, and her
So she's kind of clumsy too?
No, it's she has troubles with steps. That's the side of dyspraxia that she has. She can't follow steps. So
she has a sequencing issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you give her more than 2 things to do at a time, she's lost.
What if it's written out?
Yes, I have a list. Yeah, she has a list.
Okay. Yeah. If I had to do more than 3 steps at a time, I can't do it. So she's a little bit worse off than I am. But yeah, I live by my list, or I would get nothing done. Yeah. I have to have a list for things.
Well, her occupational therapist, when she came to do the diagnosis of the dyspraxia, because I mean, shoelaces and zippers, and we learned to bike at 9.5 because we just couldn't get it before, but when she showed me she had her do 3 things in a row, and she said as soon as the third one was in, she was done. And I never noticed that before. I just knew she wasn't listening, but I didn't realize that the third step was
well, yeah, and the not remembering things beyond 3, that's a working memory issue.
Yeah.
If it's a matter of she's got a list of items that she's being given to do, but she can't prioritize them, she doesn't know how to organize them, that's much more of a prioritization issue. If she's given the list of things, here's 10 things that you need to do, how well does she accomplish it once she has the structure?
Well, her list for the morning, as an example, she doesn't even need the list anymore.
Nice.
But it took a year, and it was Penny Williams, actually. It was her book that told me how to do the list. And it was plasticized, and she dragged it around with her, and she checked. It took about 6 months to get that in place, and then she didn't need the list anymore.
So how many things does she have to get done in the morning?
I think there's 6.
Okay. That's very cool.
Yeah. And she doesn't need the list anymore. Yay.
Yeah, Jeff, I heard a little bit of an echo. I'm not sure where it's coming from. Because sometimes it can happen if you're listening from 2 different devices at the same time.
No.
Like if you're calling in from the computer and the phone or something.
Okay. Quick question about the that digital system. What age do you recommend it? My son is in second grade, and I think he'll benefit from it. I'm just not sure at what point to consider it.
Well, I recommend testing anything. Because if you haven't used it before, you don't know if it's going to work until you test it. So one thing you could start doing, do you have a device around the house?
Yeah, he has an iPad. He has his own iPad.
Okay. So if he would benefit from lists, start constructing lists on the iPad. Because depending on the program you use, you can put little check boxes in there, and he can just tap it and fill a check in. If it resonates with him well at home, then you can absolutely try and extend it to the school district, the school domain environment.
Okay. Because he is also like very forgetful. It'd be nice to have like a gentle reminder versus me like telling him what to do everything. If he looks at a list, that might be better than me just telling him.
And you can program these things with alerts.
Yep.
You take your medicine at a certain time, and hey, remember you got to take out the garbage, or whatever the prompt is. Because we know kids nowadays, these devices are always in reach. So it's not going to be a matter of, oh, I didn't hear the alarm because it was on the other side of the house. That's not going to happen.
I mean, for me, my list that I did with Penny, in her book, she talked about being tired of repeating. And so her point of the list was, now instead of me saying, did you brush your teeth? I would just look at her and say, Jessica, where are you at on your list? And she would like, oh, okay. And she'd jump back in. So for us, the list, that was the purpose of it. The list was really stop me getting to the point where I'm like, would you listen to me, child? So instead of saying, I've asked you 3 times, I'm about to go postal, you need to do this, please. But now it was, here's your list. Where are you on your list? And then instead of repeating, I just would say, your list, and she would jump back. Like it was like the thing that would like, oh, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. So for us, that was huge.
Yeah, it's the difference between a prompt and a criticism.
Yeah.
A prompt is almost like, help me remember. Is there something we're supposed to pay attention to? A criticism is, you failed.
Yes.
You didn't do this. There's one thing, when my oldest boy had the dishes for a long time, the responsibility. And one thing I'd start saying to him is I'd say, Zach, what's wrong with the sink? He says, what are you talking about? I said, the sink. I think there's something wrong with it. And he would look at it and like, I don't see anything wrong. You sure? Is there something in there that shouldn't be there? And he says, oh, it's full of dishes. Yeah. What do you think we should do about that? Okay. And I was just acting like a big dummy. He knew what I was after, but the way I asked it didn't sound like a criticism to him. And it worked so much better. And when you use lists like that, any kind of a device, you can have a conversation with your child about the best way to support them. How can I support you in using this list? Well, don't nag me all the time. Hey, I don't want to nag you either. You know, what would sound better instead?
Yeah.
So you can say, oh, well, just, ask me if I remembered, and then you test it out. Because if you do it the way they asked you to, and they still accuse you of nagging, you can say, hey, I'm just keeping my promise to you. You asked me to do it this way, and I promised I would.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing what you told me to. If something else would work better, let's discuss it. Because the more you can make yourself an ally instead of an enemy, the easier it's going to be for the two of you to collaborate.
For sure. Yesterday, when we were having the conversation of this lost binder, she said, I wish you'd stop trying to fix me. And I was like, oh, I need to stop arguing with her because this isn't getting anywhere. And I said, Jessica, I said, sweetie, I said, I have a list for things because I have just as bad memory as you. So I said, if I need something, it's in my phone and it says, hey, Tammy, do this. And it has like a, so I'm trying to help you so that at 42 years old, you're still not trying to figure out how to remember your shit.
Well, and she also completely twisted the issue.
Yes.
And she says, I don't, why do you keep trying to fix me? And say, when did you decide it was about that?
Yeah.
because all I was trying to help you do is to get a result that you said you wanted. That's it.
Yeah.
It's about the result. It's not about who you are. You're not going to change one bit.
No.
You're going to use a tool to get this result. I love you just the way you are, kiddo.
Yeah.
We're talking about strategies.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
Because with all of the kooky stuff I got going on in my neurology, I've leveraged technology as much as I can. I've given up the idea that my brain is ever going to work like a typical person's. Normal is one of those words that needs to be banned because it's pure fiction.
True.
People use it, but they can't demonstrate it. Can't you be more normal? Really? Okay, show me the point of reference. Who's normal? What does normal look like? Well, like everybody else. You mean all those people that are different from each other? Those are the ones I'm supposed to be like? No, show me normal. Where is it? Normal is one of the most subjective terms on the planet. People say be normal. What they're saying is make me comfortable. Be like me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what if you're an asshole? I don't want to be like you. Is that what normal is? No, I don't want to do that.
No. Yeah. No. I'm really glad. Jess, my daughter, will often say to me, Mom, I'm different from everyone else and I don't want to be like them. So, like, perfect.
It's great to figure that out early, isn't it?
Yes. So.
But within that same conversation, you don't want to be like them, you want to be different, but you also still need to make a decision about how you're going to contribute. How is your difference going to be an asset? People that are really scattered may have very creative minds. You guys know who Elon Musk is?
No.
Elon Musk is the founder of Tesla, the car company.
Okay.
I think he was also one of the co-founders of PayPal. Man is a flippin' genius, but he's a huge pain in the ass because he can't make up his mind. His brain is going all over the place. He'll have his team going in one direction, and they'll be almost done with something. They'll say, "Oh no, I don't want to do that anymore."
Oh no.
So his engineers will be really putting a lot of money and effort into something that'll change his mind. But when they ultimately do come up with something, it's totally outside the box. The stuff they're creating at Tesla is stuff that has never existed before. One of the prototypes they have is a self-contained energy cell that can power the entire house.
Wow.
Which means no more wires coming in and out. I'm surprised GE hasn't tried to shut him down yet. Because of the stuff he's coming up with. It's really exciting to see what's happening over there, the kind of brains that are working. But it's because of that creative mind that he's able to come up with these outside the box concepts and some idea of how to make it happen. But as far as getting from point A to point B in a very linear way, it ain't going to happen with this guy. So if somebody sat him down and say, well, we need to help you come up with a more corporate, logical, way of solving problems, he'd lose his mind.
Yeah.
So that quirkiness needs to be allowed.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend who knows he has ADHD, but he doesn't want to treat it because he thinks that he wouldn't have the ability to fix a problem on the fly.
Okay. Can we go back to your friend and suggest a little bit of a different language?
Sure.
The idea with ADHD is not to cure it or to treat it. It's how to channel it.
Yeah. And when the medication you're on is right, you should still be used. Right.
Absolutely. The stuff that numbs you out and makes you a zombie is the wrong medication.
Yeah.
Because my middle son, who's been on a med called Vyvanse for years, he was bouncing all over the place. He was impulsive. He couldn't keep his hands to himself. He was always getting in trouble at school. He was getting in so much trouble. He wasn't able to focus on his work, very forgetful. So when we put him on the meds, not only was he more calm and focused, but this artistic talent emerged we didn't even know was there because he couldn't sit still long enough to draw.
Interesting.
And not only that, his mind was flitting around so much, he'd get this idea of something he wanted to draw, but then he was on to the next shiny object. So he had all these great things in his head, but couldn't sustain his focus or stay calm enough long enough to produce. Now the stuff he cranks out, it's like, holy crap, where'd you come up with that? Did you trace that? Did you copy it? No. Just came out of his head. He also has this amazing intuition. They saw one of the cats. He has this amazing intuition when it comes to engineering stuff. Hang on one second. Okay. I had to yell at him for a second. Little pattern interrupt, you know? But we got all kinds of different blocks these days, right? There's Kapla blocks and Legos and Lincoln Logs. And he started building these structures, which you needed to understand weight distribution, because they were shapes where you'd say, oh man, that thing is coming down. That's going to fall. But it stayed up. Somewhere in my archive, I've got pictures of the stuff he built. Again, not following a design in any way. He just pictured it and built it. And this all came about because we used a medication as a tool, not a cure, not a treatment. It's a tool to help him get better results. So part of your friend, or anybody else for that matter who sees it like that, needs to get that kind of verbiage or language out of their way of perceiving it. Because anything that sounds like it's nullifying who they are as a person, yeah, I wouldn't want that either. It's like somebody offering you poison. Mm-hmm. But if you see it in terms of helping you achieve your goals, suddenly it's an asset.
Yeah.
Because one thing I would ask them is, yeah, you can solve problems on the fly. That's great. How do you feel about the rest of those results you're creating in your life?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to do anything with those?
He's an anxiety case.
Yeah.
Because he's constantly working in overdrive.
Yeah, the H in the ADHD has got his motor running really, really fast and he can't slow it down. So having something in there that can buffer that typically does not interfere with the creativity, because the hyperactivity, that's all about how fast something is moving. And that's one of the biggest issues that my son was having. But the creativity, those two, yeah, they're in the same diagnosis, but they really don't interfere with each other.
No.
And a medication isn't something that once you sign on to it, you're on it for the rest of your life.
No.
He can try it, and if he doesn't like it, okay, don't take it. Do what I do. Get a big cup of coffee every morning. Sip it throughout the day so you have that steady dose of what I call liquid focus, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
So one thing I got to work on for my own son is I'm very education-minded. And we're doing Kumon, so he's doing it for extra reading. And he's reached a point where he's really struggling with it, where he does 5 pages, don't read the whole packet, and it's taking him up to an hour to do 5 pages. And I don't think I'm being enough of a positive sort of reinforcer, because I think I'm contributing to the frustration, because I think he should be able to do a certain amount of it on his own. And I'm really encouraging him to do it, not always asking for help. But I think having him struggle, I think it's having the opposite effect in terms of being beneficial for him.
Well, be careful of the beliefs you're teaching him. Because one of the things that you struggle with is the pride of having the challenges that you do. Mm-hmm. And trying to function as though those issues don't exist.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're projecting that on him a little bit. When the reality is this: the challenges exist. They're both a blessing and a curse. But they have to be channeled and they have to be accommodated if we're going to give our best results. Mm-hmm. And one of those accommodations is you've got to be able to ask for help when you hit that stuck point, that usually because of some skill gap of your own, whether it's comprehension because you have dyslexia, whether you have a hard time remembering from one page to the next because you have poor working memory, you don't know what the heck you just read. So maybe you need to, and this ended up being my magic solution, which I didn't discover till college, because heck, I wasn't even diagnosed until my 30s, is if I can read it and discuss it, it goes in.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm just reading and trying to think about it, I might as well not read it at all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a matter of, not asking for help, doing it on his own. The idea of it being independent seems to be a big theme here with you.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of pushing so much for independence, it's a matter of him discovering the tools he needs to create the result he wants. So you want him to get through 5 pages. What does he need to accomplish in those 5 pages? Does he need to understand concepts, fill in the blanks? What needs to occur?
Mm-hmm. So it's a little of everything. It's, I noticed there's a vocab issue, and I'm thinking maybe I should come up with a way of like keep looking up the words, either using a easy to read dictionary or some something on his iPad where he can like easily look up words that he doesn't know.
Oh yeah, dictionary.com. It's free.
Yeah. So that's one part I noticed, and I think the other thing is just I need to be just more help. Sometimes I like discourage telling him the answer too much, in that I try to come up with a solution where he comes up with the answer on his own. But sometimes I think I just need to not be stuck on that idea that I can't tell him the answer. Just be like, okay, let's just go through it, have him try to figure it out. But if he can't figure it out, then just give it to him or just move on.
So what we need to work on here is his resourcefulness.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me an example of one of the questions?
So, for example, you'd have to read the passage and then answer a couple of questions.
Okay.
Sometimes, if the question doesn't specifically ask for you to go to a certain area, like if it doesn't mention the exact word mentioned in the passage, he has a hard time associated just a general question with like what their answer should be. So he tries to find it and then write it down. But if it's worded a little differently in the passage, it won't really come to mind to him.
So it's not as concrete.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so dealing with abstract stuff, which for some kids can be pure evil because those skills aren't really developed there yet. So what have you been doing so far to guide him?
So I'd have him read it out loud when he does it, and I would have him like read the question out so he understands what the question's asking for, and then have him read over the paragraph that would have the answer within it. And when he comes to that area, I want him to read before and after that area that it's asking about, so he can see see it in context, not just like the specific word. And half the time he can figure it out, and the other half the time it needs maybe like a little repetition or a hint in terms of what it should be. But usually, eventually, he can figure it out.
Okay. Is this a process that you can see him needing to use beyond these 5 pages, where he's going to be using this approach for years?
Definitely. This is just part of critical reading.
Okay.
I've struggled with critical reading myself in terms of being able to.
Here's a recommendation, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Work with your son to develop a written workflow.
Okay.
So it's similar to a list, but it's not task-driven. Okay, a workflow, you can use mind maps are helpful, or things where you can highlight it, but essentially it's going to be like this. Step 1 for solving this problem, like it's a fill in the blank or something. Mm-hmm. Step 1, review the paragraph.
Yep.
Step 2, if you didn't find it after step 1, step 2, consider that the answer may be differently worded. Because some kids need to deliberately switch between concrete and abstract. Their brain just doesn't infer. Because they'll even say this in IEPs. I don't know if you have this, Tammy, where they say it needs to work on inference. Seeing something that's implied. Sometimes our kids need to be reminded to look for that. Because what's the default setting? Black and white.
Yep.
I want to be concrete. So if something needs to be viewed abstractly, you need to remind them. So put it in their problem-solving steps that, look for something that's implied as opposed to concrete.
That makes sense.
And the steps that you're working him through already, that once you guide him, he's able to do it, take yourself out of the equation, write it out. Because now he's going to be doing it much more, I don't like the word independent either, self-determined.
Okay.
Which means he's guiding it as opposed to somebody else. And he's using the tool that you've created together to guide him. And I've got a lot of workflows. I've got workflows for my Facebook Live videos, for some of the emails that I send out. I've got workflows for how I do certain coaching sessions. Because with my memory, I'm going to forget steps. I'll leave stuff out. And it's all gobbledygook. But if I have those workflows that say, do this first, do this second, do it in this way, that's probably a more substantial difference too. A task list is do this. A workflow is how do you do it? Mm-hmm. Do this and do it this way. So that's something that could probably help him really well, especially if it's something that generalizes to other settings, other activities.
Definitely.
So, and that's something that I don't see show up a lot in any classroom. A lot of the academics just assume that skills are there, but that kids they're lazy, they have a negative attitude, they could do it if they tried, when the reality is no. Yeah. Sometimes the wiring simply is not there, and you need to put something in place to fill that gap. Mm-hmm. I don't remember directions. If I did it once successfully, I won't remember it the next time. No. But if I think I will have to use it again, I will write out a workflow of how I did it so I can go back to it the next time I need it. Mm-hmm. That comes in handy a lot.
I need to do that. Mm-hmm. That's a good trick. I gotta do that.
See, I got a lot of them, Tammy.
Yes. Well,
because I not only have to solve my own problems,
yes,
but I've got 3 boys that are very different from each other.
That's it. And each kid is so different, right?
Right. So I'm having to come up with solutions for them too.
When I went for Jessica's ADHD test to see what she had, and it was the point where they gave me the report, and the neuropsychologist said, it's amazing. He said, I give Jessica a list of 15 words, and he says the first time she looks at it, she remembers 3. And he says, then she looks at it again, and she remembers 8. And he says, then she looks at it a 3rd time, and she gets them all right. And I started to laugh. And he said, I started to laugh, and he said, oh, Mom, you see yourself? And I said, oh, yeah, I do. That's how I got through high school. If I read a book once, I don't get anything. If I read it a 2nd time and take notes as I go, I remember a bit. And then the 3rd time I go through just my notes. And when I get to the exam, I could see the paper in front of me. I knew everything on that paper. And it was like insane. Mm-hmm. So when I heard them say that about her, I was like, huh, that's interesting.
Darn DNA.
I can't blame this on her dad.
No, I'm sure he's plenty guilty for other things.
Oh, yeah, sure that.
But this is one you take credit for. And the real gift in that is, and I was just talking to a gentleman a couple weeks ago, and he needed some help helping his daughter navigate the trouble she was having at school. And I started making some suggestions. He said, oh, yeah, that's what I do. That's what I figured out to do. Really? Why don't you teach your kid this?
Yeah.
Because he didn't realize that's why he was doing it. He was just really good at coming up with his own solutions. So even though you have the same challenges, if you come up with anything to work around it or compensate, pass it on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually how my memory works too.
And maybe, again, turn these things into workflows. Mm-hmm. Because understanding your own mind helps you with insight it helps with your own self-esteem, because you can say, man, look how creative I am. Look what I came up with. This is awesome. And sometimes because of the way your quirky brain works, this is a way to document it and make it useful for other people. Because what if, one of your coworkers or one of your friends was having difficulty with something, and instead of trying to explain it because you haven't really thought it through, you just do it. But now you can hand them something and say, here, this is my system. And they look at it and say, man, this is perfect. Where'd you learn this? Where'd you come up with that? That my first book was written that way because I was going through my undergrad for social work, and we were sitting around the lunch table, and people were having to talk about their test anxiety for finals. Well, I was able to get really focused, especially if it was essay, which in social work school, that's pretty much all the test is essay. I'm able to put my thoughts together because I would write down my first thought, pause, wait a second, figure out what I needed to think next, and go from there. And I was so focused on my process, I didn't have time to get anxious. And I shared with them what my process was, and I said, man, that is so cool. Where'd you learn that? I said, it's just what I do. Could you write that down for me? That's so cool. And I thought, really? It's just something I came up with. And so I wrote it out, and this one girl, she loved it so much. She says, oh, well, this part's unclear. Can you expand on it? And the more I thought about what I knew and started writing it down, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger till I realized I had enough for a book.
Wow.
And it just kind of took on a life of its own. So you have more solutions, both of you, than you realize. You just don't document the stuff.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So by all means, when you figure out these processes, these little workarounds, start writing this down. This could very well be part of your legacy to your child is, these are the problems I've already solved.
Mm-hmm.
Apply these, see if it works for you. And if we need to make adjustments so that it better suits the way you function, let's do it. Let's put your fingerprint on it so that it fits you. It's one of the reasons I do so many of the Facebook Lives, because that's how I capture a lot of my strategies these days. In the past, back in the days of tape recorders, what the heck are those? I would carry a tape recorder around with me everywhere. Because if I would have to remember something while I was driving, you can't pull over and write down everything. You'd never get home. So I just hit record and put all my little notes in there and then listen to it when I got home.
Ah, that's a great trick.
Yeah, then I write it down.
Yeah.
And now you can do that with voice memos. If you have an iPhone, they have an app called Voice Memos. You just hit Siri, open up Voice Memos, say, remember to do this, add this to this list, email this person. You get home, first thing you do is listen to your voice memos, and everything that you need to do is right there.
It's a great tool for the people like us.
Yes. And I would bet money that people like us are working at Apple and invent this stuff.
Yes.
You know what I could really use? I could use something that I can speak my voices into. Let's make an app.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I want to go there for one day and just hang out with the nerds. Because it'd probably be like a homecoming party or something.
Yeah, I think so.
The Lost Tribe.
Oh, dang. Yep. There's a lady on Facebook. What is her name? She calls herself the Brain Gangster.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh, you have to find her. She's hilarious. But she's always talking about our tribe, and she puts out little things that are like so ADD and so they speak to me. She's awesome.
It's so it's like an African spotting another African in the crowd.
Yeah.
You know it's one of your own. It's so obvious.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. She's funny. But
so we got about 9 minutes here. If either of you want to use it, if there's other questions that you have.
Jeff, anything?
I think I'm good.
Okay. And we always have the group. If you come up with anything afterwards, you can always put your questions there. And myself and ideally some others will come to you and support you and give you the information you need.
I would love at some point to hear you talk about how you schedule your life.
So what you can do...
I've tried Things, which works well for me. I've tried Google Calendar, which I hate.
Yeah, Google Calendar is a tool.
Yeah.
And we can... I'll tell you, because next week, of course, Thanksgiving.
Yep.
I would be shocked if anybody made the Tuesday meeting because people travel and all that stuff. But one thing that would probably be helpful, Tammy, is if you make me a list of the stuff you've tried that didn't work, as well as the things that you found that do work.
Okay.
Because then that way I can look for, kind of a best practices to scheduling. without repeating a bunch of stuff I use that for you has just completely fallen flat.
Perfect.
And I might even be able to do a special training out of that.
Okay.
So it's on you now.
Hey,
You got this?
hang on. My list.
Absolutely. You got to make a note.
I'll put it on. I'm putting you on my list.
Yeah, I think I have to find something for my phone to keep track of. I'm really bad at remembering things, so I have to come up with a strategy.
But here is a real important thing to remember when you choose any kind of app is what problem are you looking to solve?
Mm-hmm.
What's your outcome? Let's say your outcome is, I want to be on time for everything. Okay, well, what helps you do that? You know, there are apps out there that not only prompt you when you have to get ready to do something, but it'll prompt you throughout it to make sure you're still doing it.
That's good.
You know, like 5 minutes in, hey, are you still focused? Oh yeah, oh crap, yeah, that's right. I need to get back to this. Now you usually not need to pay a monthly fee for stuff like that because it's so involved. But there are things that do that. But first, decide what your outcome is.
Mm-hmm.
I need to remember to check my kid's backpack. I need to remember my kid's meeting. If it's a memory thing, okay, well, what are the good memory apps? If I need to be on time, okay, I need a good scheduling app or a strategy. So figure out what your outcomes are first.
Okay.
As opposed to one of my friends says, oh, I live by Google Calendar. It's great. Maybe I should do that too before you haven't even established what your goals are.
Yeah.
So start thinking of that, and then that should help you really narrow down some of your options.
Okay.
Google Calendar for me, I put time frames in of when I was going to do stuff. And then if something came up and I couldn't do what I wanted to do, I was mad. Like, well, this is not functioning. Because now I'm
Well, is that the calendar's fault?
No, it's not. Like, you know, some little stupid thing would happen and I'm like, well, damn. Well, now I can't work out because such and such happened and I'm going to have to move this and I got to reschedule.
Yeah, we call that reprioritizing.
Yeah.
All this crap that happens because we decided to have kids. They're crying out loud.
It was a good choice at the time.
Now, one final request, which I routinely forget to ask is, if you found value from this time or anything else, feel free to brag about it. Tell the world so they can find their way to this community and everything we do, and they can benefit from it as well.
Will do, definitely.
Okay, team?
Yeah.
All right, Tammy, so wonderful to see you.
Wow.
But always make it back whenever you can.
Last week I scheduled you in for one, and then I realized we weren't on the same time zone, and I went, oh, no.
See? It's a lesson you only had to learn once.
Yeah. Well,
You're so ahead of the game from most of humanity. All right, you two have an awesome day, awesome Thanksgiving, and you can always reach me in the group or whatever until we meet again.
sounds
You
good.
too. Have a
All
great
right,
day.
folks?
Bye. Have a good day.
All right, you too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.